the sides
Do
that
you
I
want
can...
to hold it?
Ooh. Because it would be nice to be able to address everyone as it's public as well. As Leslie has very kindly said, I'm Deborah White. I'm the Chief Officer of Avon Local Councils Association. We're a membership organisation that represents 124 of the town and parish councils in the west of England, and we have about 6 town and parish councils not yet in membership. We are not the parish council police. We're not here to stand in judgment. We are supporters of local democracy, and we provide advice and information to those town and parish councils and keep them up to date with the law. We're also affiliated to the National Association of Local Councils, who provide good practice, lots of templates, legal advice, and also campaign to government when they're making mistakes as far as local councils are concerned. I've been asked tonight to talk about declarations of interest because I quite often hear some old terminology used when I go around town and parish councils, particularly the word prejudicial, because that just isn't in the vocabulary anymore. The new regime for standards came into effect in March 2012 as a result of the Localism Act of 2011, when there was the abolition of the Standards Board. All of that went out in that act. And it was the coalition government at the time who made the decision, and their rationale for disbanding the Standards Board was these new measures outlined in the Localism Act will replace the bureaucratic and controversial Standards Board regime, which ministers believe has become a system of nuisance complaints and petty, sometimes malicious allegations of councillor misconduct that sapped public confidence in local democracy. And that was their rationale for doing it. So out went all the old standard boards and a new regime came into force. There are only 2 types now of interests. One is a disclosable pecuniary interest, so that's any monetary or financial benefit that a councillor may gain. And the other one is a personal or a non-pecuniary interest. A pecuniary interest is any employment that you have, sponsorship with the council, contracts with the relevant council, land, including your home, licence to occupy land, which is rented accommodation. It could actually be your allotment, if you've got a licence to occupy an allotment, corporate tenancies, and any beneficial interests and securities. Now, councillors must declare any of those that relate to themselves, and these are the words of the law. They are yours and those of your spouse or partner living with you as a spouse. All right? You could run a bus through that, because I know very many good marriages that don't tell each other everything that they own and everything that they spend and every transaction that they do, which is absolutely fine. But when you think about that, you could run a bus through it, and I'll tell you my story, if you'll just indulge me for a few minutes. I'm one of 6 children, all right, brought up in my hometown. I left to go to university in my 20s, and I went down to the south coast, and I, much to my father's disgust, because he was a GP, married a sailor. Okay? I knew everything. I wasn't going to listen to my family. I went down to the south coast and I married a sailor. That marriage didn't last very long. That's fine, no children, but I never got divorced. All right? If you scroll forward 30 years now, and I want to stand for the council in my hometown, I have a partner, a life partner. We go on holiday, we do all the things that partners do. We have a joint bank account, and we run a business together, but we don't live together. She and I have kept separate houses. So if I'm standing for a councillor, which interests do I declare? That of the sailor that I haven't seen for 30 years because I'm still married to him? Or that of my now partner with whom I have a joint bank account? Well, according to the law, I have to chase up that sailor, because I know his mother lives in my hometown, and find out what interests he's got in my hometown, but I don't have to declare the interests of my now partner. And the point that I'm making is it's only an individual counsellor themselves who can make the decision as to whether they have an interest that they need to declare. The clerk can't advise them, another counsellor can't advise them, and certainly the general public cannot say to them, you mustn't take part in this decision because you have an interest, because it's much more complicated than that. Now, those disclosable pecuniary interests are those of you and your wife or spouse or partner. Anybody else's interest, your mother, your brother, your father, your next door neighbour, your best friend, they are not disclosable pecuniary interests. And you are not breaking the law if you take part in a decision that has anything to do with those people. But you would be breaching the code of conduct and could be reported for it. Okay? But the idea of this new regime is to cut back on those numbers of reports of interests or counsellors misbehaving. Because if you turn the coin completely on its head, you have to have an interest in a community to even serve as a counsellor. You have to live here or you have to work here. So you have to have an interest to be a counsellor in the first place. Now, if you take my situation, my 5 brothers and sisters, they've all spawned, they've all got children in that community. If I stood as a counsellor, could I not take part in any decisions because my family would have some sort of dealings in pretty much everything that goes on in that community? No, of course not. You've got to take a common sense approach. And I would defend to the death the right of local people making decisions for their local community and having an interest in it. Because heaven forbid we don't want Western-super-Mare, Bristol or London making decisions for Portishead.